hour number 3 as we welcome in our weekly visitor on Tuesdays, ESPN NFL analyst, former NFL quarterback Dan Orlovsky, to put him through the painstaking paces of pulling through this Monday night affair between the Bills and the Jets. Dan Orlovsky's segment brought to you by Ellicott Hotels. Fans, round up your family, friends, or coworkers for a fantastic game day experience at 500 Pearl. Reserve your pack and book your group event today at 500pearlbuffalo.com. Dan, I imagine you're doing better than a lot of Bills fans this morning. I am going to run by you some of the statistics that we rattled off earlier today because turnovers largely told the tale last night. Josh Allen, 29 interceptions over the last 2 seasons are the most in the NFL. His 19 total giveaways last year led the NFL. Going into the game, Josh Allen had 7 career interceptions against the Jets, tied for the most against any opponent with New England. Now, in basically, 2, 4, 6, in 8 career games against the Jets, 9 touchdown passes, 10 picks, 7 lost fumbles.
Those are tough to hear. Those are tough to hear if you're a Bills fan. All right, so I'll start with just last night more so than the overall, because I think they're all connected. Watching Josh last night my note is it's almost like watching an adrenaline junkie. For some reason, you just can't help yourself. And it's different because, so often quarterbacks, I'd say they turn the football over. They throw interceptions, I think, for 2 reasons, mainly. Number one, that they have to make decisions before they're ready to. Like you're in the pocket, the rush comes to you, and all of a sudden, like you have to release the football to a guy that's not open, and you're trying to guess where he's going to be or feel where he's going to be. That wasn't the case. The second thing is you're getting confused by coverage. That, oh man, I thought the guy did this and he did this, and that again wasn't the case. Josh's case, and the one that you're watching now, I believe that's the first one.
Yes.
That's 3rd down and 6 or 3rd down and 8, I want to say it was. He breaks contain. And there's really 2 things to do with the football. Either throw it to Dawson Knox or go run one-on-one with the safety. This one, the one that I think down the middle of the field with Steph, it is so obvious that there are 2 safeties. Both the safeties turn. They're 10 yards deeper than Steph, and they both have vision on Josh and Steph looking inside. There's no way that Josh should make that throw. But for some reason, and this is kind of the overall point that I feel like he gets, in many ways he gets like this a lot of times, that coverage is very easy for Josh to see. It is cover 6. He sees that coverage on a consistent basis. The Jets are under a ton. I think the overall thought with Josh when it comes to some teams, not all, but certainly the Jets, is the Jets make everything hard on every play. Everything. They very rarely give you real completions. They'll sometimes give you a 2-yarder. They very rarely give you completions. And I think what happens with Josh is, since he's so competitive, he's like, oh, you're going to make me make hard plays. You're going to make me make tough plays. Watch how great I am. See how great I am, because I can. And while the competitiveness is such a benefit and it makes him the special player that he is, it holds him back. This play, for example, the corner route, the high-low to Gabe Davis, there's no completion there. There is no completion there. Now, I hate running this concept to the field where there's a ton of space because I think the safety has so much ability to play over the top. There is no completion there. But for some reason, he gets into this mode where I'm going to get the completion because I'm so great. And that's really frustrating to watch that talented of a player do it consistently.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you sit. And this is really the first opening day in a minute, maybe in 2021 when they lost to the Steelers. But this is the first opening day in a minute where we've seen Josh not play better than the last time we've seen him play. Where he comes out like last year they came out and hit it like gangbusters and he got off to a great start. Even in 2020 they came out and they started hitting it almost right away. And it seemed more of a mindset, like you're saying, it seems more of a mindset problem with Josh than a coverage or an inability to read defenses or bad offensive play calling, just one thing after another. They're all the things that we attribute to poor offense. This seems more of a mindset in Josh rather than any of the other stuff.
It's not a will to, it's not a want to, it's not an intellect, it's not a care. It is very, and we saw this. So it's 2023. We saw it in 2020 with Patrick. We saw it a little bit in 21 with Josh. These highly talented, and I would say they're two of probably the most physically talented guys in the league. When you don't allow their talent to kind of be the storyline or kind of on display, that's when am I getting the competitiveness comes up, or is it the frustration level that rises? Guys, I counted 7 times last night where I phrased Josh as out of control. 7 snaps where I have him out of control. What I mean by that is feet all over the place, leaving the pocket when there's absolutely no reason to leave the pocket, running when there's no need to run, eyes going right, left, or left, right, or looking at the run or the rush, and trying to go and take off as a runner. He's too great a player, and he's played too much for 7 snaps in game 1 to look like that. 2 things I would say. One, I'm not going to sit here and say that Ken Dorsey was Bill Walsh. I'm also not going to sit here and say that Ken Dorsey was atrocious. When you're playing on the road against a team that no question has an advantage over you on the line of scrimmage, and the Jets absolutely do, there has to be more than shotgun pass. There has to be more of under center, run the football, under center, play action, a little bit more of a commitment to protection in those play actions, more screens that to get the ball to the perimeter. And so I would really like to see Ken Dorsey bring that into this offense. And just if I was Ken and Joe Brady, I think you got to sit down with Josh and just say, hey, we have to grow up. And this is not a disrespectful thing. I love Josh Allen. I love him. I'm such a fan of his as a player and a person. We have to grow up. Gary Kubiak said this to me like my 5th year in the NFL. I'm nowhere near the player Josh was. But I threw an interception in practice, and he called me over, and he was like, hey, man, he's like, at some point, you got to realize you don't hold your job in your hands when you got the ball. You hold everyone's jobs and everyone's futures and everyone's hopes are in your hands. And Josh lost sight of that a little bit, I feel. And certainly the play kind of says that. And I think that someone's got to sit down and look him in the eye and be like, hey, man, we got to grow up when it comes to this, because the moment Aaron goes down, there's only one way they lose that game. And he can't be the reason why they lose that game.
All right. So let me discuss this on a more widespread scale, because we saw Patrick Mahomes adjust his approach to the Chiefs passing game when he's facing nothing but cover 2 shells or versions of that.
Yep.
And has to go to a short, efficient passing game. He rides it all the way to the Super Bowl after losing his best deep passing weapon in Tyreek Hill last year. Joe Burrow is tired of getting sacked 60 times in a season. He goes to a quick release pass game with Zach Taylor, gets the ball out of his hands in 2.5 seconds, takes that all the way to the AFC title game. We watched Tom Brady win 7 Super Bowls and go to 10 going with a high efficiency passing game. I had an old offensive coordinator once tell me college football is about touchdowns. The NFL is about first downs. Can Josh, do you believe, get to a place where he can accept being a high efficiency quarterback and not a highlight reel quarterback?
100%. We've seen it. We saw it on the back half of 20, maybe it was 20 to 21, right after Patrick experienced it. And I apologize, I don't remember the exact year, because Patrick did it saw it the year before, and then Josh saw it, and both of them course corrected. We've seen Josh do it. And it's, I don't want to speak out both sides of my mouth here either, Chris, because, part of me goes, Josh Allen isn't this dink and dunk quarterback.
No.
There's no point in having 6'5", 250-pound absolute cannon arm. But part of it is this, and this is where this has to be like this group, this quarterback room, offensive room effort. Can Josh do it? Yes, he's done it before. How does Josh do it with also not making him something that he should not become? And it's the play call, it's the play design, it's the, hey, Josh, when we call this group of plays, and I almost think like they have to get a section on their call sheet that becomes the get Josh settled down section, where sometimes coaches have these, hey, we're going to get, we would have it where we're going to get Andre Johnson the football. We're going to get Calvin Johnson the football. These are plays where you get into the middle of the second quarter, the guy doesn't have a catch. We call this play to get him to catch. It's almost like they have to have this section for Josh of just get Josh back and settled in. And it's this understanding of, hey, defenses are going to play us this certain way more than likely. Josh, when we call these plays, the ball's getting out. We want the completion. It's boring. You got to get us the 2nd and 6.
Got to have it.
You got to get us. We're just calling this. And guess what, Josh? I could complete this ball. And I know you can do more. But this is for the team. Because then what it does is, hey, Josh, when we call these plays, let's take our shots. If we got a chance, let's take our shots. Now, what needs to happen is when Josh has that shot play or that chance, coach calls it, and he doesn't win. The defense wins the rep. Josh has got to do the right thing with the ball, turn to the sideline and be like, call it again. I did the right thing. You got to trust me. Call it again. And I think, again, that's where it's got lost a little bit. Can Josh be that? Absolutely. It's not just Josh by himself. It has to be a very much so collaboration.
One of the things we noticed in the regular season last year were the 3 losses that the Bills took were a lot like this loss, where they helped their opponent beat them. We saw this also Thursday night in Kansas City, where the Chiefs kind of did all they could to help the Detroit Lions win. So the Chiefs, the Bills, and then, of course, it's a different game, but the Cincinnati Bengals got thumped by Cleveland. So you got the Bills, Cincinnati, Kansas City, 3 top teams in the conference that were supposed to be contenders. All of them took it on the chin. Did you make anything about that?
No. Steve, I'd say this. I've said this. I don't think we can judge Buffalo and kind of who they are until Vaughn comes back. I would say the same thing I've said about Kansas City as well. Until Chris comes back, and obviously Chris Jones redoing his deal last night, it's not fair to judge those teams, because if Quinnen Williams wasn't playing for the Jets, we wouldn't judge them. We would have an asterisk next to that. So I want to see who Buffalo is in totality. Let me say something about the defense real quick, guys. And Sean McDermott, highest amount of respect in the world. There's no way that they can continue to think that they can play with that little size-wise in that second level of their defense, and it's going to be okay. The Jets ran for $172. The Jets got on 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, and the defense in the second level, meaning behind the defensive line, was 223, 224, and 208. Football is a math game in many ways. Big people push on little people, and I really think that they got to figure that out, because teams are only going to try to replicate that. Cincinnati with Joe and the injuries, their offensive line got absolutely whooped. Whether Joe not playing, I give them a little grace as well.
Yeah. Right. Dan, we saw, and we talked to you about this last week, the Bills went to 12 personnel as anticipated, but they went to it 63% of their snaps. We told you last week the Bills only used 12 personnel on 3% of their snaps last year, lowest in the league. We all expected an increase. That is a sharp spike. I realize it's only 1 week, and part of it's probably game plan related, knowing they were probably going to try to look at the middle of the field as a place to attack, and one of the few areas they felt they could exploit against this Jets defense. What was your assessment of their 12 personnel usage and execution last night?
So not really surprised that they went to it a lot. I think it not only is a beneficial thing for them, it puts probably inarguably their best 11 players on the field on offense. I didn't see enough of it when it came to the kind of the variance of their run game in it. I also think the 2 things I want to see more when they get into it, and hopefully they do it more, is when they're in 12, I want to see Josh under center more. I feel like I've said that for a year. I want to see this. I want to see this offensive line be given the opportunity to fire off the football. and, not have the RPO called or not be in the gun and read the line of scrimmage. Like sometimes get those tight end wings together. We're going to fire off the ball. We're trying to get 4 or 5 yards. Offensive line, push them. I think the mentality of that is going to be a little bit better as it goes, or hopefully. And then I want to see that them kind of use the tight ends a little bit more on the perimeter and get a little bit more of the skill players on the inside and build pass concepts in that capacity rather than placing them in traditional kind of positions. So I think that they should be on the field a ton. I just want to see them be used a little bit in a run game wise, more traditional way, pass game, non-traditional way.
All right, last one for me, Dan. Last night, we had the 9/11 commemoration. The game gets going. It's an absolutely electric atmosphere, and 4 plays in, Aaron goes down. As a quarterback, you've seen it. We've seen injuries, and the Jets end up winning the game anyway in a shocking fashion. But what does this mean, do you think, for the Jets, Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh, the whole thing, having the kind of offseason that the Jets did, and 4 plays in, having this happen?
It's the worst case scenario for the Jets, for football, for the NFL. It sucks. What it means for the Jets is their season over. No, they were an 8-win team last year with Zach Wilson. So the season's not over. No. Can I sit here and tell people that I think that they're an unquestioned Super Bowl contender? Absolutely not. There's no evidence that Zach Wilson can go be that person. I hear all these names all morning get tossed around. The Jets need to go do this, 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 and this. They're not beating Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar and Justin Herbert with Jacoby Brissett or Ryan Tannehill or Nick Foles. While those guys are good players. So I sit there and I go, if I'm the Jets, really, do I add a guy, of course, for depth and respect out of the football team and the right thing to do? But I'm not going to get a guy and trying to sit there and go, you're going to be the starter. Zach, you're not the guy. My hope, Zach has learned a little bit, and Zach becomes the guy that we drafted number 2 overall. Am I banking on that? No. Do I still think they can make the playoffs? Yes.
Last one from me, Dan. Let's just take a look ahead at the Raiders, who come off an inspiring 1-point victory over their division rival Denver Broncos. What should Bills fans expect from a Raiders team, that has Josh Jacobs back in the fold, but Chandler Jones is still a little bit AWOL here? I realize Max Crosby is a major factor up front, but just maybe an overview of Las Vegas.
Yeah, so defensively, the Bills, again, this will go back to kind of my point of how they're playing so much nickel or their 3 safety package with Taylor Rapp. The Bills the Raiders, they play a lot of 21 personnel, 2 back, 1 tight end. It's not like San Francisco or what we kind of saw at the Dolphins. They're not doing it to throw. They're playing traditional smash mouth football with their fullback. And if they're going to play in so much nickel or 3 safety, my concern is that the Raiders will be successful running the football. So I want to see how the Bills will adjust to that defensively. Jacoby Myers, because you're paying so much attention to Devontae. The Devontae Adams connection it didn't show up in week 1 with Jimmy Garoppolo that much, but his feel for Jacoby Myers and their past, and also the attention that you're going to have to pay a player like Devontae, because Jacoby's a very fine route runner. So if he plays health-wise, we'll find out. I think Denver offensively, I would say this. Josh is going to have to be aggressive with the football downfield. Russell Wilson wasn't. There's throws there that he can go be aggressive with. I think the more that they can layer concepts, meaning you got a guy deep, a guy short or intermediate, and a guy short in half of the field, you're going to have some success against that Raiders defense. So I would expect a little bit more chunk completions in their passing game and really just pay attention to see if there's any defensive adjustment in that run game.
Dan, thanks as always for the insight. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, guys.